Hi, welcome. And today we have Anjali Sharma with us, and she is an expert storyteller. Anjali is the founder of Narrative, the business of stories, and she's based in Singapore now. And she's here to share with us quite a few stories. So let's get into it. Anjali, let's hear the story about you first.
Well, as you mentioned, I'm born in India, but I've had the absolute privilege of having worked in Singapore, in Australia, and in India itself as well. So I have a huge background, a corporate background myself, which is really where my understanding and the day-to-day challenges of the corporate world kind of comes from. And currently I run this business which is called Narrative, the business of stories. So broadly it's a communication strategy business, but specifically we only focus on stories that the businesses need to tell, and how do you tell them and why do you tell them, which story to tell when, what stories work in a certain way and what stories don't work in a certain way.
That's remarkable, just on stories.
Yeah.
And we are doing Asia Marketing Summit and the podcast simply because we know there's a lot of stories that can benefit, the light of day. Can you share with us how do you end up in Singapore and from Asia and Australia? What's your story like?
Right. So I came to Singapore in the year 2000 or 2001, one of that. And I came here to be a flight attendant with Singapore Airlines.
Oh, wow.
So, I got to work with one of the best brands here and experience it firsthand. I mean, the positioning of the brand and the whole Singapore girl positioning is so strong, and the way they market it is remarkable. But I had come from having done my graduation and having worked in India for a little while. But, in about 3 to 4 years' time, whilst I was flying, I'd also done my master's, and I wanted to get back into the world of the corporate because that's really where I enjoyed working a lot more. So I got back into working in hospitality, went to Australia, worked there with Hyatt Hotels and Group for a good 5 years. Came back here, worked with the McCann Group in the brand experience arm, and now I have been running Narrative, the business of stories, since 2011, 2012. And the corporates keep us busy with the stories that they need to tell.
Okay. Can you share with us, was there any particular challenge? How did the journey start, and what really motivated you to begin this?
Yeah, actually, I think, 2010, 2011 was also the time where, the information was becoming a lot. It was exploding, right? So there was a lot of information, but very little time, and that continues to grow in that direction. There's just too much information in very little time, and if you are time poor and you don't have enough, if you have too much information in very little time, you have an option, which is to ignore, right, whatever's being thrown at you. And I started to notice that the way the brand spoke, the way the brands marketed themselves, the way individuals marketed themselves, the way entrepreneurs marketed themselves, their language was actually just noise, and it was noise inundation, right? And I thought, how could this be better? How could this be in a way that I want to stop, I want to listen, I want to engage? And that's really where I saw that, stories had a really big role to play, because one of the most important things about stories is resonance. And when something resonates and becomes about me, I want to stop and listen, and I want to hear, and I want to engage, and I want to know more. And I think that's really where I saw the opportunity.
That's very interesting. Do you have any success story that once all the stories come together, did it really drive the agenda? Did it really tell the story of the business?
Yeah, so I'll give you an example of a really large multinational, corporate who has a regional headquarter here. So there are plenty of success stories, but I'll choose this one because this was done out of Asia. Now, this brand, I could put the name in front and everybody would know what they do. They're that big. But the challenge was that how do we tell the story better, which is where our expertise come. I'm of a big belief that most corporates have stories. It's just that they have not illustrated them, extracted them out, and they don't know how to tell it well. So one of the examples that we worked on, which actually worked remarkably well, was there was this hospital in Vietnam, which is where their product is positioned. The product is being used in a normal way to be able to people would tell a story about the product in that hospital would be, here's our product, now you can do that much with it, this can be better with it. But that was not the route I was going to take with it to be able to tell the story better. So the product is a telemedicine. So essentially, doctors sitting in one room can actually supervise a surgery that is happening elsewhere. Now, this case study was rather interesting for me from lots of different angles. So the very first one being, if you look at the geography of Vietnam, it's really long. So in this hospital, the hospital was having lots and lots of patients come in. The hospital was not able to deal with that number of influx. People were traveling in that long geography from remote provinces and stuff and coming here. So the hospital said, why don't we send doctors to the provinces and get them to operate from there? So the doctors went to the provinces. But then the problem was that the patients or people from the province did not trust the doctors in the province. They still wanted to come to the national hospital because that's where the experts were, which was causing a lot of problem because you're positioning the doctors there, but they're not using those doctors. So what are we going to do? Now, why we tried to understand why is it that the patients were not using those doctors? Why were they not trusting? So a conversation with a young doctor from province gave us a brilliant insight. So this is when we're building the story, we're trying to find out. The doctor was honest enough to say to us, I have only had a certain number of experience. That is why I'm in a province and I'm not in the national hospital. And I'm sitting here in this province. I get a patient comes in, I open the patient up, I don't know what to do because it's not what I had studied or what I had looked at before. It's beyond me. I stitch the patient back. I go out. The family is looking at me as if I'm a god and I've done some wonders. But I haven't done any wonders. That's caused lack of trust from the patients in that province area. So what we did was to tell the story of this product, how this product enabled this doctor to supervise the surgery from the national hospital and give this young doctor in the province the guiding hand to be able to manage that well. So when we worked on the emotion of the province doctor and when we worked with the emotion of the patients, this story was an extremely successful story. It was not the traditional normal route of, proximity, efficiency, and all those heavy words that we throw on people. And I would say that, that's one of the success stories I never forget, simply because I remember running around in that hospital and trying to capture the patients. And
you were on the ground?
On the ground, like a documentary, yeah. So we were capturing all the conversations and I don't even speak the language, so I had a translator and I would tell the translator what I want, and then the sound man and the cameraman were running around trying to capture that. And the day that we were collecting this content, honestly, Patrick, I had no idea what I was going to get. So it's unlike you build a story work and work to the perfection and get everything to the T. I think great stories come from a lot of chaos. And when we come back and we start figuring it out and having an advisor, doctor advisor on board with us on this, so we got a doctor involved and I tried to understand, so that empathy factor comes in. So I asked him, why is this like this? Why do doctors feel like this? That gave us the real insight. And then that video the story we created in Vietnamese, but it has now been translated into several other languages because people saw a real understanding.
So a story that's coming out of Asia and it's going global.
Yes, it's been shown globally as well. Yeah.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful, wonderful story. And I think in the case where the culture and the language and they're looking for expertise, I think you really told that story well. Now, for marketers and business owners who want to come into Asia, who want to tell their stories, what's the one thing that they should actually master, or the one thing they should do to get success?
Yeah, I think so. There's one simple rule with storytelling that defeats everything else that exists, which is if it does not resonate, it's not true for the listener. Okay, so I think resonance is an extremely important thing in whatever you're trying to do in this marketplace. So, making sure that you ask yourself two questions before you build that story. Who is it for and what is it going to do? I think what we think, we sit outside in the world and we think we are this, we do this, we change the world like that, we bring food to you, or we make you happier, we make you fitter. But that's like aiming for everyone and everything. So if your story is made for everyone, then it's not the story that's going to stick, right? You have to really think, who's the story for? So let me give you an example. You come up with a chocolate shop, and you start marketing that chocolate and start telling the stories of the chocolate without thinking that I have to market only to people who actually love the chocolate flavor. Then only the story would be right. So understanding who is it for and what is the change that we're trying to make with the story are the two questions I would really suggest that people ask themselves. What people know is what their brands do well, and then they just want to go boom, But how does that matter to the listener? That resonance is what I think is really, really important. I've been trying, as an Asian girl myself, I've been trying so hard to find Asian female leaders that I can talk to. And there's only one that surfaces all the time, which is Indra Nooyi. But I can't claim her. She went to Yale University and we lost her to America years ago, right? So that it's so, and I'm if I want to talk to Asian women, they have to essentially understand the Asian women's mindset. They have to understand our social, our cultural, our family bonding. That's what creating resonance means. So I would say, who is it for? What is the change you try to seek? Will it resonate? Are key questions to ask.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Not at all.
With that, we're going to finish this segment, and I can't wait to get into a deeper conversation with you and to hear more of those stories. But until then, we'll see you at the Asia Marketing Summit. Thank you very much.